presentation for our amazing ETV LKC.
We're gonna start by talking about the design of the cart, and what we did was we painted some sides pink and some sides blue, and then on the wheels we did a pink base with blue splatter paint, and the pink represents love, and the blue represents passion, and it represents kind of like our passion and love for physics and for this cart because we put a lot of effort into it. And the blue splatter paint represents the eggs that cracked, like the blood of the eggs that cracked. And then but not ours. And then on the back we put our initials, and this is basically just like personalize it and make it our own.
So we started out doing research about how our design should be before we started brainstorming with each other in order to have like educated thoughts and discussions about our car. One thing that we discovered was that the rods sometimes don't move properly or smoothly when they're just placed in a hole in the wood. So we decided to use ball bearings held down by pipe clamps to keep the rods in place and to have them spin freely, which is the function of a ball bearing. Once we chose the idea to have ball bearings, we based the rest of our car around that idea. Since we were using the pipe clamps, we needed a way to hold them down. So we fashioned two planks of wood here and here where the pipe clamps are screwed down onto, which hold the ball bearings in place. And then we just have the wheels attached to the rods sticking out.
So while our ETV now looks like this, it took a really long time and process for us to get to this point. So we started off by measuring out our wooden planks to make sure that they were even on both sides, and then we looked to hot glue them together. But before that, we also we drilled holes into two sides of our car, the sides that the axles would go through, so that our car could meet the first checkpoint that it could move. But then while testing on that day, we recognized that the pieces of our wood were not glued straight enough together, so it didn't make a perfect rectangle or square. So then after this, right after we tested first, we went right back to work and we broke everything apart, and we planned to do a better job at cutting the wood and gluing together.
So after we realized our mistake, we decided to start over from scratch, and what we did was we measured out the planks, and then what we did is we taped the planks together so that they were the same length, so that when Mr. Lindley cut them, they were very even and very straight. And then once we taped them together and he cut them out, then we noticed that it was a lot straighter, and it made a huge impact on our car.
Once we had taped the pieces together to make the outline of our car, or the rough silhouette of how it would be, we decided to take more slats of wood and place them in between here to make measurements of how big they should be. Then we hot glued the pieces together, and we cut these planks once they were taped together in the same way as before to increase our precision. And then before we glued them in, we wanted to secure the pipe clamps down onto them, and we started doing that with one of them, but then we saw that the wood was splitting. So as per Mr. Lindley's instructions, we decided to drill little holes into the wood before screwing it in, so that the wood would maintain its structural integrity a little bit more. So once we did that, we had the pipe clamps secured down with the ball bearings onto them, underneath them, and then we glued the pieces down, like the little planks here, into the car.
So after sanding down the wooden planks and hot gluing them in, we looked to add in our rods with the wing nut, the nuts, the rubber washer, and the metal washers. And then we tested, and we realized that there was a huge curvature in our path towards the right, our car's path. And then We also noticed that our axles weren't straight, which could be contributing to this issue, and then also that since our nuts were not thread locked, our wheels were moving and shifting towards one direction, which was also contributing to the path change.
So after we began testing our cart, we realized that it was very inconsistent because of the curved path it was taking. So we decided to thread lock our car because we had like very little time left. But when we thread locked our car, we realized that we did not do it like properly. What happened was we thread locked it too far away from the exterior of the cart, and when we really should have had the wheels flush to the exterior of the cart. So then this affected our braking mechanism. So with our braking mechanism, because our threaded rods kept shifting, we couldn't accurately measure from the wing nut to the ball bearings, and it made our data very bad and also just very inconsistent and inaccurate.
Since we had already thread locked the wheels too far from the edge of the car, with the help of Mr. Lindley, we decided to basically increase the width of the car by adding a formation of popsicle sticks to the edge so it would stick out more. We originally had 4 layers going up and down and like across, but then that was causing too much friction on the wheels because it was getting caught. It was too close. So then we lowered it to 3 going each way, and then that was better because the wheels were closer to the new edge of the car, but they weren't getting hindered by friction. And another issue that we had seen during testing was that the car, once it had stopped from the brake, it was skidding to the right. So we wanted to even out the weight distribution by adding dowels to the top of the car.
So the addition of mass and the addition of these wooden popsicle sticks proved to be very effective in, I guess, aiding the curve that was occurring in our ATV's path during testing. When we had like a rubber material or like a smooth surface around the CD's rims, our car moved much straighter with these added materials than in comparison, like compared to before when it was curving to the right a lot. And however, a major issue that we did encounter was the use of a material to line the rims. We started off by using rubber balloons and rubber gloves, but those 2 materials, while they did prove to work, they broke very easily and they would not like stay on after undergoing a test. Then we looked to use friction tape, and while the friction tape was effective, it was too effective to the point that it would produce too much friction and that our car would stop before the wing nut even reached the ball bearing and the rubber washer. And then after that, we looked to try another type of glove, but that also produced too much friction and the wheels were not able to like move very effectively. And then we're going to use rubber bands, but we bought rubber bands that were too thin, so they wouldn't stay around the rims. And we did not have enough time to go buy thicker rubber bands because this was on like the final testing days, and we would not be able to get enough accurate data to create an accurate mathematical model with these changes.
So ultimately what we did is before painting the cart, we flex sealed aspects of the cart to make it stronger and create some aspect of friction along the wheels. And this proved to be somewhat effective. It definitely enhanced the strength of our cart because before it was kind of falling apart at times and we kept on having to re-glue and re-glue and re-glue, but we found that with the Flex Seal, it stayed very strong and sturdy, and it proved to be very effective because on test day, the cart did not fall apart.
The addition of a material around the rims of these CDs, well, that was necessary when we were looking for materials that were that had a higher coefficient of friction, so that when testing our ETV and when the braking mechanism was enacted, that less skidding would occur, and that it would be like a more precise stop when we were measuring, and like that was the only variable that was being tested.
Over the course of this project, we faced many obstacles, whether it was little tiffs in our group where we had to learn to communicate with each other, to express what we wanted, and how we were feeling about the project and how it was functioning, what we needed to fix. We also went through other issues, whether it was spending 5 periods here in a day working on it and coming early and encountering more issues that need to be resolved, especially with our wheels and our axle, or if it was getting a car dropped on your foot or burning your finger with a hot glue gun. But we got through it, and at the end of the day, our car performed relatively well considering all the obstacles that we faced and we overcame, since we were able to collect enough data to make a mathematical model.
Additionally, I think it's important to consider the fact that as a group, we really came together and persisted. We never really gave up on each other. We continued to reach out to each other. We would stay up late at night on FaceTime. We really did work collaboratively on this. Even now, we're laughing about everything. I really think that our group was determined, and we really did persist. And we really struggled. We were on that struggle bus, Lindley. We were really on it. But
Still are.
We laugh about it now. We're happy with how much we've accomplished, and just thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to work together as a group.